Thank you all for being here. This is the last meeting in October. Would you please sign in?
Is your microphone work? There we go.
Thank you. Next up is agenda approval. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you.
If not, Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, start voting, please. Susanna?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, we have citizen comment. Alamosa City Council welcomes your comments. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the City Clerk at the start of the meeting. I have one card. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? Mr. Tim Yoder, please approach the podium. Your name and your address, if you wish. You have a 3-minute time limit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Tim Yoder. I'm here this evening because I'm president of the San Luis Valley Habitat for Humanity Board. Audrey Liu is our executive director, and she's out of the state at the present time, so she sent me in her stead. We have a request before you for reimbursement of fees of approximately $4,000 that's on your agenda for this evening. Just to tell you a little bit about what we're up to, the house that we're asking for the reimbursement on is at 1520 Ross, I believe it is. And we hope to close on that house and have a homeowner in there at the beginning of December. We've also started a house on Edison at 1605 Edison that we just have the foundation in, and we're getting the floor started right now. So I'll be available when you get to that item on the agenda if you should have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on then to ceremonial items.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. I was going to introduce you, but go right ahead, Andy. Thank you for being here, Ms. Jolly.
I wanted to introduce you guys to our newest staff over at the Rec Center. Community Activities Manager, Jess Jolly. She's been with the city for 8 years. I'm sure you all know Jess, but you probably don't know behind the scenes. She's just a key cog in the wheel, and you know, I don't want Pat to steal her because she's our resident engineer. She solves problems. But I'll let her say a few words. And also Don Mendoza. With his strong officiating background, he's kind of helped us for about 2 years, but he moved into Jess's recreation specialist full-time role. And pretty solid effort so far, so I'm excited for our future.
Thank you, Andy.
I didn't know I was supposed to give a speech. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to work in my new role, officially meet you guys. We have some good help here too with Don. He's filling my role and couldn't be more happier with moving forward in what we do day to day. Do you guys have any questions for me? Kind of know me?
Councilman Coleman.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I get a chance to go around to the rec center a lot, and I get a chance to see you all, you Jess and Don as well, in your roles over there. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing, because you bring a lot of positive energy over there, and you help out so many people. And it seems like the youth in our community are getting more involved with the program that you have over there. And thanks also for the pickleball that you're making sure that we have all the tools we need over there too as well. Appreciate it.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to say, I know you guys have dealt with some challenging situations over the summer and in the transitions and being super busy and coming into new jobs. So thank you, A, for coming and talking to us, as I'm sure it's just so slow for you now. But also for all the work you do to help keep all of the Parks and Rec programs going. You guys are doing an excellent job, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Don, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to wait. I was assuming Don was going to introduce himself, and then I'll wait, just in case I might have a question, and then I'll say something.
Okay. Good evening, Don Mendoza. First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to fill this position. I've been waiting for this position for a long time, actually, way back who knows when. But we were talking earlier, got some big shoes to fill. It was amazing how she did everything, and she's a huge help still to this point. With everything from my background, coming into this role, it's been exciting. I mean, I've been super busy nonstop, and I'm loving it. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Councilor Liz Hensley.
So I'm very excited for all of you and all of the great things that are going to come. The Rec Center is just such an important part for the quality of life for the city of Alamosa. And your positive attitudes, spirits, everything you do, it has been awesome, and I just see continued growth, so thank you all, and I'm really excited to see what's coming forward.
Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Grego.
I'd just like to thank Andy. You're putting together a good team. You can see it. You can see it out there in the participation in all the programs and stuff, and just by who you're bringing together, you're putting a good team together. We want to thank you for that.
If I could add, I couldn't ask for a better mentor myself, so. Not second out.
Very good. You know, we have, Council, we have 3 talented individuals standing before us, you know, and we're lucky to have them working not only with our youth, but with their adult programs. And so thank you very much for what you do on behalf of the citizens of the city of Alamosa. And welcome for your new positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're going to see a lot of me tonight, I think. Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Steinberg with the Friends of the Library to come up and show off this little cool vehicle and tell you guys all about it and explain the background on how we got it.
Thank you. So the Friends of the Library had this fantasy that we would have a bookmobile, and now we do. It's a very environmentally friendly bookmobile, and we're here to show it off and also to thank the Rotary Club of Alamosa to enable us to obtain this through a grant that they facilitated through their national club. And in fact, we got more than the ability to buy the bookmobile. Also wanted to thank them because their grant allowed us to get some extra shelving in our book nook, which is where we sell books right in the library, which is a good income producer for us. I don't know if any of you have seen the mural on the bookshed where we have our book sales, and we're featuring Hemingway on the wall of the outside of the sales shed. We're very proud of Hemingway. And then we also got some cabinets in the story room so we can get a little more organized. But this is the most fun item that we got. I did want to say that the total grant was $9,103, of which National Rotary contributed $4,000 and the local Rotary $550, and then the Friends of the Library then contributed the remainder. So if the group would demonstrate our bookmobile, and then inside the bookmobile is a gift for each one of the council members. And then perhaps the Rotary members here and the Friends of the Library members can get their picture taken with the councilmen and women. And this is our official bike driver. He's specially trained. This bike is made by a fellow who actually specializes in bikes for created into food trucks and other kind of retail things. We thought, what a great idea. So.
Well, that would be great. We appreciate that, Don. Thank you very much for the invitation. We'll be right there.
So I'll give you your gifts while you're up at the bookmobile. Each of you will receive a book entitled How to Become a Town Councilman. However, there is one special one on how to be a mayor. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you. And if anybody would like to please help yourself. You can drive it if you want. Yeah, let's get everybody smoothed out. Yes, please do. Step right in. We need to smudge in.
I think that I can get you. Oh, we're all friends as long as nobody are fine. They're going to take a few, so don't run away. This is too long. Let me take one of this one just on the safe side. Thank you very much.
So ring the bell.
Really high tech.
We certainly are. He's our official driver. Well, you know what? Oh, we're also going to get official signs. It's a little squeaky.
Chris, you should tell him Hemingway's a cat.
Yeah, oh, Hemingway is a cat.
Very good. Very good.
Look at this.
Very good. Thank you. And so we will now move on to consent calendar A. Consent calendar A allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar A contains routine items which have been recommended for action by staff or advisory boards. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration. Tonight we have two items, the minutes of the meeting for the October 4, 2017 meeting, and we will receive the September 2017 monthly reports. Councillor Vihil.
I move that we approve consent calendar A.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on consent calendar A? Seeing none, start voting, please. Susanna?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to regular business. Presentations from outside agencies. We have two this evening. The first one is the Early Iron presentation, followed by the La Puente update. Mr. Woodward, it's a pleasure to have you here with your helpers, seems like.
Well, they're not my helpers. They're just there. It's a pleasure to be here. It always is. We go ahead and let's see. We've got some stuff for you guys. So as we always do.
Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Okay, Miss Helen?
We got T-shirts. And hats.
Oh, thank you. That is awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One in the back, Judy.
Very good.
Huh? There should be an extra large for Jan. If not, we need to get another. There's another.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having us. It's always a pleasure this time of year. Number one, it's kind of like Christmas. You know, you build up, you build up, you build up, and then it's over. You know, but there's things to follow up on, and that's why we're here tonight. First of all, I want to give you a report on the 2017 37th Annual San Luis Valley Early Iron Festival. The first thing I've got to say is we are so fortunate to have the city on our side. From Parks and Rec to Police Department to the council. I mean, it's unbelievable, and people that come from other parts of the country, in our own state, even as far away as West Virginia and Los Angeles this year, say it's just unbelievable. They don't know how we do it. And I tell the story about the club in Longmont. They're 10 years older than we are. And because of non-communication and unwilling to work together with city, PD, they are no longer having their Rod Festival. And ours continues to grow. And the economic impact, I'm going to let Liz take care of one of these days. We're going to give her all the numbers. She'll plug it in. Last year, the economic impact was just a little over $2 million, and this year it was bigger, so it's going to be a bigger economic impact. And we're really proud of that. But we, as a club, can't do it by ourselves. There's 15 members in the club. It takes the community, the whole community to make this thing happen. And people ask us, how do you make it happen? We say it's a community thing. You know, yeah, there's 15 members, and we probably got, I don't know how many. If I started trying to name the volunteers that we have, people that come up and say, hey, can we help? Can I help next year? Hey, I saw, Adams State football, redshirt freshman this year and last year helped us serve, and it's great to have those guys. I'll tell you what. We don't have to carry around tents, tables, none of that stuff, man. We're getting too old for that, you know? We really are, and those guys are great. So the cooperation between the city and the college and the whole community, and when I say the whole community, I'm talking about the whole San Luis Valley. We've got sponsors of this thing in every town in the San Luis Valley, and we so much appreciate that. It makes our job a lot of fun. And that's why we do it. We do it because it's fun. And we do it for the love of our community. And these guys sitting here, the group is sitting here, the representatives tonight, they really don't really want any kind of attention. They don't want anything but to make the community better. Great bunch of people, I'll tell you what. And I love each and every one of them, I got to tell you. And I don't want to throw that word, I don't throw that word around lightly, but I do. I love each and every one of these guys. They're great. And it isn't without complications, but what the heck, you know. You get that many nuns together and it's not without complications. I mean, what are you talking about? You know? So anyway, and we're not nuns, that's for sure. And we're not, anyway, we won't even go into that part of it. But I wanted to give you a real brief report, if I can, if you indulge me just a minute. We started Friday morning, Parks and Rec was there, the city guys were there. Excuse me, the city guys were there. We set up the fence, set up the stage. I mean, we couldn't ask for better cooperation, honestly. Police department was there, sheriff's department was there, and we just got it done. They started rolling in here about, well, they tried to come in about 5 o'clock Friday morning, but Ronnie doesn't open registration until 3. So anyway, but she always lets them in early. Friday night we had a little over 400 cars in the park. The marketing district board handed every person that drove in 2 bottles of water. We're just, wow. We served over 4,000 tacos, 100 gallons of chili. Now you guys know Willie Wade, don't you? Yeah, Willie Wade works at the Green Spot. And he was a little concerned we were going to throw that chili away, so he ate 10 bowls. So he didn't get to help us Saturday. He wasn't feeling all that good. But we appreciate Willie. We really do. He's a great guy. So again, you know, anybody who wants to help, we want them to help. We want to get them involved. But anyway, we had about 2,700 people at the party Friday night. We won't talk about the beer bill. I haven't seen it yet. Ronnie has. She just told me I needed to transfer some money, so I just wonder if that's over the beer. But anyway, it's a great time. Kicked it off with a bang. We're real fortunate that we get, again, the great venue that we have and everything that we have. Cooperation means a whole lot. Saturday morning, we started letting them in about 6 o'clock in the morning, fed them donuts and coffee and orange juice, sponsored by our 3 elected officials out at the county. And if I don't say Melanie Woodward, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. So Melanie Woodward and Sandra and Lois, they sponsor that every year, and we really appreciate them too. And so we got them in, got them fed. The seniors had a biscuits and gravy breakfast down there. These guys they're just shaking their head going, how do you guys do this? You know, how do you make this happen? Well, hey man, you know, look around, you know, we got a great community here. We had 590 registered cars in the park. We had 18 special interest cars with our race cars, the nostalgia dragsters and the funny cars and stuff, and then club cars. There was a total of 608 cars in the park. We were very privileged this year and have been for the last few years to have a NHRA, National Hot Rod Association Hall of Famer here, Junior Kaiser from Kaiser Brothers Racing. That's a story in itself. I had to talk till I was blue in the face to get him to come down here the first year. He said, "You're telling me now what goes on in Alamosa, Colorado?" I told him, "Junior, I'm paying your expenses. Come on down, man." All right, now we can't get rid of them. Okay, so and we don't want to. We love them to death. You know, those guys are great. We had pinstripers from all over the country. Todd Hansen is world-renowned. In fact, he just got back from a class that he taught over in Australia for 2 weeks. That's the quality of pinstriper that we have show up here at our panel jam. And we raised, with the panel jam, the panels that they did, we sell at auction, and then that money goes to charity. And we raised just a little over $2,000 for charity there. And then the Coloradans that I was telling you about didn't have a charity this year, so they kicked in another $1,000. That charity went to Sangre de Cristo FFA this year. We choose a new charity every year. So it was a great Saturday. Saturday night, we fed them over at the Knights, kicked them out about 8 o'clock on the cruise. I don't know how many people were lined up and down Main Street. That cruise is just amazing. And our merchants are getting into it. They're starting to to get their wares out there and offer ice cream, and Century Property Management over there has free hot dogs and Cokes for that night. Just come on down, you know. And that was a great time. That was a great time. We put them to bed about 10 o'clock. Nobody got in trouble. I talked to Sam and the chief, and they said, no, these guys were great. Of course, they don't want to mess up too bad. They got a lot of money and time tied up in those cars, so they're a pretty good bunch. They really are. Sunday morning, we got up, had a church service, non-denominational. Got a great guy that does that for us. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how much longer we're going to have him. He's battling a disease right now, cancer, and he told me about 3 weeks ago. I saw him up in Longmont, and he said, "Jeff, I don't know if I'll be there next year. We sure hope for the best for him." He's a great guy, Ron Palmer. I like to debate with Ron. He's a great guy. He really has been coming for years and years. We did our poker run. We started out at the bridge, the assisted living bridge. Not this bridge, or this one. Anyway, went up to the Veterans Center in Monte Vista, and wow, what an experience that was. I don't know how many guys, unfortunately I didn't get a chance to drive up there. I stayed in town and helped them get ready for the lunch. But they said those people were so thankful. And when they left, they stood and saluted. And I had numerous people that attended that took part in the poker run tell me, "You need to do that every year, Guy." Those people loved it. They really did. So that's something we're going to work on we've already got started on next year, but we won't go into that. But we definitely love those veterans, man. Wow. Fed them lunch back at the bridge and kicked them out about 2 o'clock. And we all went home and went, wow. But as I said, we had people from West Virginia, Los Angeles. That bunch from Los Angeles just loaded their cars on a car transport and brought them out here. I think they had 6 cars, said they'll be back with 2 transports next year. One guy said, I go to probably 30 car shows a year. He said, I've heard about this one. I didn't believe it, so we came. I would have never believed it had I not seen it. I don't know how you do it. So we're very, very fortunate that we have you guys, and we appreciate you very much. We really do. We appreciate all that this community does for us. Yeah, we organize it, but it takes us all to do it. It really does. So we talked about the pinstripers, and if all these guys will come up here, and while they're coming up, we want the city to have one of the pinstriping plaques. Mm-hmm. And there's a check somewhere right there. And then last year, Early Iron committed to another $500 for the Wi-Fi in the park. We did the 1,000, and then we committed to another 500. And we want to present that tonight as well. Couple of requests we have. Of course, we want you to keep that PA system for the park in mind, okay? But we were wondering,
Yes.
Ronnie, we were wondering, there's a little piece of dirt between the parking lot and the running track at this gate right over here at the 2nd Street gate. It's probably, what, 10 feet wide?
Maybe 6 feet long.
Maybe 6 feet long. Could we get some pavement put in there so these guys, last year they were, I mean, you know, it's a small request. I mean, we're not putting any pressure, but.
Now, Jeff, you do realize we have to run that by our city manager.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heather,
so if you smile at her real big, you know.
Is there any asphalt over there? Just a little bit. We don't need a whole lot, but if we could, you know, it'd be really nice. You know, it kicks up a lot of dust, and those guys go through there with the exhaust, and it flies up dust. Really, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is to them. So, are there any questions?
Councilor Stefano.
Man, I just want to thank you all, the 15 of you. It takes quite a lot of work to do what you do. And it's an awesome event, if I ever seen it. I look forward to it every year. I carry a towel when I go over there, so I drool a lot over the cars, but man, what an awesome event that is. And I think it's the greatest event here in Alamosa right now. And man, kudos to all of you. You're doing a great job, and keep it up. It's a wonderful experience to see these cars and keep the memorabilia going. And man, what you do is awesome.
We
Thank
appreciate that. And again, we couldn't be the success we are without the cooperation of each and every one of you here. That's for sure. That's for sure. You know, Mike Wisdom made a point at Marketing District the other day. It's kind of neat. We're 37 years old. This is our 37th annual. And we go to shows, national shows, SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association over in Las Vegas, and people come up to you, and you're the guys from Alamosa, aren't you? And that's pretty neat. You know, it's pretty neat. We're Alamosa in this show, and again, because of the cooperation that we all throw in together, we're nationally known. And we got a big one coming up, the 40th, but we're not going to overlook the 38th and the 39th. We're a little bit, we're getting excited. 40 years, man, you know? Wow. I didn't even know, I got socks older than that, man. We didn't know we'd even last that long. You know, Al Ballard, one of the original six, told a story that when they first started this, the first year they started it, they came to council and asked them if they could use the park. They didn't give them an answer the first time they asked. They weren't real sure. And of course, you got to realize, you know, that's 37 years ago, and we were a little bit of a challenge, if you would. Yeah, that's a good word, challenge. But anyway, you know, it's come along, but council didn't approve it or disapprove it. They wanted to talk about it, and then they called Al in. Al was their spokesman at the time, and he said that they asked him, what do you think about this? And he said, I think it's a good deal. Well, what about those other guys? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, how well do you know them? He says, well, I just know them through the club. Well, do you think this is a thing to do? And he said, yeah. And they said, why? And they said, because it's the right thing. And council made the right decision, I believe. Here we are 37 years later. The first one had 36 cars. Now we're over 600 cars and nationally known. And I think council made the correct decision. And we appreciate that very much as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, Mike, Ronnie, Helen, and Robert, thank you all so very much for the gifts. They're really nice. Your early iron event is kind of like Christmas financially to our local economy. And I would like to thank you all so very much for making a positive financial impact to our local economy year in and year out. Thank you so very much for everything that you do.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. This bunch, I'll tell you another real quick story. We never had an attorney. Never felt like we needed one, but we were talking about it. We thought, we ought to get somebody, you know. So we were in the campus or something one day. And we seen Gordon Bosa. Said, hey, how'd you like to be our attorney? And he looked at us and he goes, you know, I've been doing some criminal law lately. Yeah, I'll take you guys. So, anyway, but no, we appreciate the whole community. These guys are so humble. They don't do it for, there's no personal gain. Each one of us takes time off work. We take money out of our pockets. Everything, probably the month of August is put on the side. In fact, Melanie said, well, it's the 1st of August. I'm now starting my yearly being a widow for early iron. So, and it gets a little crazy in August, but this is a year-round deal. I mean, we'll finish up with the city now, and the 1st of January, we'll start getting our permits and everything. We like to get those early, so there's never a problem. I want to thank Holly Martinez so much. I mean, she keeps us on the straight and narrow. You know, if she sees something wrong with one of them or something, she'll call and say, hey, did you mean to mark this? No, Holly, I didn't mean to mark it that way, But she's great. So what a fantastic staff this city has. I mean, it doesn't matter who they are. I mean, it's just fantastic. But anyway, we're taking up a lot of time, but I did want to tell you about this trophy. This is a one of a kind. You are the major sponsor pick. I don't think we've ever thanked you guys enough with a major sponsor trophy. But every rodder and anything that we gave this year, our police department pick, our top 15, Rodder's Choice, Ladies' Choice, any of that stuff, every one of them got one similar to this, but there's no two alike. And I talked about the pinstripers that came in. They come in on Thursday and pinstriped every one of those. And this is a very unique. There's no two, and there'll never be another one like it. So we want to present that to you, and also this $500 check for the Wi-Fi. And again, small request, a little bit of pavement, and keep in mind that PA system. Again, thank you so much.
Councilor Hensley.
I was just going to say, echoing what everyone else said, but also the idea of that it isn't just the money. I mean, the money part is awesome, but again, just such an event that is for our community for that weekend, the quality of life. That Friday night gathering has become, I think, one of the social events of the year for Alamosa in the Valley. The amount of people that come to that, and the entertainment value, and obviously the weather was nice this last time for the evening and stuff, but that is an awesome event, and so everything about it's great, so thank you.
Well, thank you. Again, we appreciate it. We couldn't do it without your participation and your cooperation. We're very, very proud of our community, very proud to be able to try to make it just a little bit better, make some people smile, and sure makes me smile. I love it.
Councilor Griego?
Jeff, I just want to echo the same thing that these guys are saying up here. And 37 years ago, I wasn't there, but I've been here 34 years, so I wasn't one of those council people that kind of questioned that. So, and it's been a good deal for the community and for the whole San Luis Valley, like you said. Everybody participates. The rooms are filled throughout the whole valley. And that night, that Saturday night, boy, you couldn't even walk the sidewalks because of the amount of people out there, and the weather was nice. So thank you, and you got a good team there too that helps you out, and they really do a good job. Thank you.
These guys are great. They really are. I can't say enough about them. They pick up where I drop off, and I try to pick up where they. I mean, it's a team deal. It's a team deal, and we're very fortunate. That club is filled with type A personalities, and each one of us has our own little area. You've seen dogs mark, and don't come in that area unless you're, yeah. But anyway.
Jeff, you've got a great team,
They're awesome.
Great things happen when your team is synchronized and works together.
Yeah.
What a wonderful example you are for other organizations in the valley, and probably even in Colorado. We appreciate what you do for the city of Alamosa and the citizens here. Is there anyone else on the team that would like to say a few words? I know it's taken a long time, but hey, if you want to say a few words.
Just great. One thing that I'd like to add is we work really hard to spend our money locally. So there's very few things that we buy outside of the city of Alamosa. It's very important to us to give back because all of our sponsors give so freely of their time and their money that we think it's really important. And the other thing is, we like to say we can't control everything. We try really, really hard, and Jeff mentioned the weather. We can't control harvest either, and for a lot of our sponsors and rodders, they don't realize that when we give away potatoes on Friday night, they are often dug within a week. They are the freshest that they're ever going to taste. So when they go back home and they look for potatoes, they realize what really good potatoes taste like. And so we're really proud of that.
Thank you. Yep.
So I'm a true politician. I'd like to say a few words, but I am the newest member of the San Luis Valley Early Iron. I'm not the youngest, but I'm the newest, and it's an honor to be part of that group. So to be part of the group, you have to have a classic car. So they accepted me into that group, and I went home and I told my wife, I have to buy an old car. But she's got a rule that says only one, and that's really not typical. You know, these guys have more than one, but it's an honor to be part of that organization, to watch it come together and everything we do and what the city does. We put all of our little differences aside and put this thing on, and it's really awesome, and I'm proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you give us a minute or so, we'll go down there and.
Come on.
Council?
Yes. This one is You've done this before, haven't you? They're pretty good. One more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
That shirt looks good.
Thank you, Mike. Oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
See ya.
Mike. Mike. You want to tell that story? All right, real quickly, one thing I forgot, Mike reminded me. We were real privileged this year to have the original 6, less one. Ronnie Clark passed away last year, but we had all the other guys, the originals here, and they gave a trophy out, and we call it the original 6 pick. And it was really, really cool that they did that. They've all joined back up. They said they wouldn't even talk to each other when they all left, but now they're all buddies again. You ought to see them, a bunch of gray-haired old farts, I'll tell you what. But anyway, it was great, and they did a great thing, and they found that there was about 8 guys that had been at the first one. There's been one guy that's been at every single one, and that's Victor Ast in Monte Vista. There's been another guy, Bob Hochstetler from Colorado Springs. He's only missed one. He missed the first one, and he's been to all the other 36. In fact, he made his daughter change her wedding date. And then this year he was sick, and he drove down on Friday from Colorado Springs. He saw me, said, "You know I'm here, right?" And I said, "Yeah." "Why?" He said, "I'm going home. I'm sick." So he said, "Does that count?" I said, "Oh, absolutely, Bob, absolutely." But he's been to every one of them. But yeah, he called me and said, "You know, Jeff, I don't know if I'm going to be there this year. Breaking my heart." He said, "This has been a few years ago." He said, "My daughter has set her wedding date for Labor Day weekend." I said, oh, Bob, we'll miss you, man. I'm sorry. But I said, I understand. Don't worry about it. Well, I'm worried. It makes me mad, Friday night, he shows up. I said, hey, Bob, what are you doing here, man? Well, he said, I told my daughter, if you want me there, you're going to have to change it because I'm going early iron. Or he said, you can get married at early iron if you want to. So anyway, those are the kind of relationships that we've built. And again, thank you all very much. We appreciate you so much. Appreciate the city, appreciate the staff, appreciate all that we have. I mean, that park is just unbelievable. Parks and Rec just kicks it. And again, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
What size is T-shirt? Attorney.
I guess extra large, please.
Extra large. I'm going to get one.
Very good. Next up, we have a presentation from La Puente, an update. Thank you, Lance.
Which mic, guys? Can I do the tall one?
Yes.
Tall one, good. I grew up in Colorado Springs, and as a family, we did little vacations, and I remember Coe Park was the one thing I remembered. So I've lived here for 30 years. That is the most incredible park. But our park network, if you've been to any other town, I can't find a place in the universe that has, of course I haven't traveled that far, but that has parks like we do. The one other memory I have when I was a kid at that park was the mosquitoes were terrible back then, and we've got that under control now too. Yeah, that early Iron Festival really is special, as are some of the other events out there. Okay, I wanted to talk with you about La Puente, just give you an update of things about La Puente, but I wanted to take an angle and tell you some things, initiatives and things that we have done in this past year that you may not know about. And I'm going to start really with our Adelante Family Strengthening Program. Our team worked together with a representative from the state of Colorado, and she was from the Department of Human Services, and they were successful at getting grants, national grants, and she needed to find a community that could compete to win a grant that was, the focus was collaboration, where multiple organizations come together to collaborate, and it was a collective impact grant that benefits families. The proposal was to benefit families in Saguache County, Alamosa County, and Costilla County, and so La Puente played a catalytic role with that, and we were proud because the Valley was chosen in the state of Colorado, and this grant got first place nationally, and we got funded. And so that particular program is doing an effort called Working Together. Trinidad State, the Workforce Center, La Llave, other folks, mental health, other folks are all part of it with the goal of working with very vulnerable families who have early childhood members in their home, which are ages 0 to 7, 0 to 5, depending upon the definition. But that's a new effort there in terms of our strengthening family efforts. Really knocked that one out of the park. Our food bank network of the San Luis Valley, annually right now is our network, our 14 sites, locations. You guys know the one in Alamosa. We celebrated the opening of a new food bank unit at Adams State University on a new partnership there. Food insecurity among students, a lot of them, there's a high percentage of Pell eligible students that are very low income, and food insecurity was an issue there. And so we have started a really incredible partnership with students, with administration, and it's just only going to grow. That our network in 1 year, and this isn't anything I'm proud of, serves around 11,000 unduplicated individuals. That's the unduplicated number over the 14 units. And if you do the math, that's roughly 20-25% of the Valley population, and if there was food insecurity or hunger in Denver at that kind of rate, it would make national news. That is all done with one paid staff person and 60 volunteers working all of the various food bank networks. News from our PALS Children's Program. I think many of you may have had a relationship with Tim Dillette, who had been there for so long. He and Jenna moved to Kansas, and we were biting our fingernails like who could ever fill his shoes shoes. Well, you just find a new person with fresh energy, and they don't fill somebody else's shoes. They create their own pathway. And Don Hanna, who has been the pastor of the Presbyterian Church, has taken that leadership position. He's fantastic. He has experience with, he and his wife, with raising foster children, being a camp counselor. He gets down and dirty with the kids and really can have fun with them. And he knows and understands the vulnerable population, the special needs kids. A reminder that that particular program works with the Department of Human Services with their open cases of abuse and neglect and kids who are homeless. Our goal is to transition or mainstream them when they're done. It's the only program like that in the state that works with the most vulnerable kids in our community. Next up on my list, better get my glasses here, is our outreach program. Is really spends the most money, engages the most households of any of our programs, and on an annual basis, it's a program that works to keep people in their homes, keep people from being evicted through either utility interventions, because a shut-off notice is a precursor to an eviction notice, or helping with rent. Now, there's a window of who you would help. You don't want to help someone who is just kind of using you and don't really need the support. And you don't want to help someone that's a lost cause where you're throwing their money away and there might be an eviction. But altogether, 1,300 households a year. And one of the efforts, we're all taxed by our utility companies, and we are the primary broker of that utility tax. It's usually $500,000 a year. The money stays up in Denver, but it's our volunteers who do case management work, who identify the worthy families in all 6 counties. Now, that's an incredible economic resource coming, and to be a little bit of scaffolding and support to the most vulnerable families, it's keeping the fabric of our community together. That plus rental assistance. And we do get some assistance from the city, which we really appreciate, to help families in Alamosa. And that effort also does our Christmas outreach party. That is like the best event in the Christmas season. You have to come by sometime. It's going to be Saturday, December 16th, and Santa is always a fella that is staying at the shelter. My next update is our Valley Educational Garden Initiatives had a fantastic year. Its partnership is primarily with the Alamosa School District, where we view hunger as an issue of nutrition, not of calories, and we want to have fresh produce available for the youth at that school. But the real issue is we all know, as ourselves and with our children, we have a hard time reaching for what is healthy. You can have it in front of you, but if you don't reach. And so through lessons in the garden plot that the school shares with us on site, kids are engaged in that living laboratory so that they can learn to reach. It's our long-term solution to hunger. The Food Bank Network, yes, it hands out food. It's kind of an immediate thing. We do have a nutrition policy there, and we're trying to upgrade what we are given and pull it out there. But the real root cause of hunger needs to be dealt with our youth, and that's what Veggie does for us. And if you didn't, I think there might have been some of you that were involved in Stone Soup, a culminating event where we bring community members in, and the children harvest what has come through the garden through the week, the spices, the vegetables, fill a huge cauldron with soup, and every kid in that K and 1 and 2 had a bowl of soup. That was 600 kids that were fed that day, and they all got to hear the community building story of Stone Soup. The shelter, right now, the shelter is... We've been averaging between 600 and 650 folks a year. Going back to our roots, it started as a program for community safety. There were folks that were sleeping in the entryways of businesses, in the alleyways, in the parks, and other buildings, and a collaborative effort with a city councilwoman and a local nonprofit in the churches. The shelter was birthed. In those days, we were sheltering and doing intakes on around 1,100 to 1,200 individuals. When we started the outreach program that I just brought up, when we started that program, as you would think, through prevention work, those numbers went down. We've been averaging between 650 and 750 new intakes a year. It's lower, it's been steady, it's reasonably under control. We have seen an uptick in the number of meals that we've been providing for people not staying at the shelter, and we've also been really concerned with the number of homeless women that we have seen this last year. That has been probably the most serious, difficult thing that we've had to deal with. We had an 87-year-old woman named Betty who, those sort of situations take a lot longer to stabilize and find her that safe place to stay. The other part of La Puente that many of you know of are social enterprises. And this last year, we started a thrift store in Central Colorado. And it was on the invite of the community. They pretty much gave us the pick of the building we would get in that very desolate downtown. And so we've occupied the old hardware store up there, and it's operated by volunteers. Financially, because it's operated by volunteers, it's doing pretty well. And the prices are really low, and you ought to go up there sometime, and maybe you'd find something that you would really like. But collectively, Rainbow's End in Alamosa, which I'll remind you was an abandoned building, drive-by shootings. People tried to torch it. We took it over in 1994, and now we have the boutique and Milagros and the Rainbows End in Monte Vista. Collectively now, our social enterprises employ 16 full-time equivalents. Last year, we pulled in $47,000 of sales tax to benefit our communities, and we also netted a little over $110,000 for our services. Now, being in a low-resource community, I might speak at an organization and get $100 or $200, and that's fantastic. Our community is poor, and our average donation size is $50 to $100. But people give their stuff. People patronize. People give their volunteer hours, which is how we get the job done. But our social enterprises really are, I feel, a shining light in our economy here, and in terms of patronage, tax dollars, and revenue, we have some good numbers to support that. At the same time, please recognize that we are a charity. 8% of our budget really comes from government sources for our services. It's primarily individuals, churches that put money into our coffers, and for every $1, and this is really important because a lot of people don't understand the economic impact of not just La Puente, but our nonprofit community. For every $1 that one of you or someone locally gives us, we receive and leverage $4 from non-San Luis Valley resources. That's 80% of our budget comes from the outside in that way. That's in terms of individuals, foundation, and all the other resources that we put together. And so we need some scaffolding too, because we're in a very poor community, and so we're really blessed to have those community partners that help us. Okay, I'm near my end here, and I also want to just put a shout out to the last week we had worked to coordinate the second annual San Luis Valley Nonprofit Collaboration Summit. This matched the first summit, and we had 60 nonprofits that convened in a room for a day, talking about our issues, meeting each other, designing projects. In that day, we designed 8 projects, and a couple of the projects were similar, and they combined together, and our launch project is going to be a resource center at Adams State University, sponsored by the college, but also sponsored by a foundation coming in to be a resource place for a nonprofit resource center at the college. We are so excited about this, and we have to see how it moves forward and how it pushes forward. But people coming together, we have such a vibrant nonprofit community, and people meeting under one roof, it doesn't take a lot of programming. When people meet on the sidewalk, we know our community. When you get together, exchange some cards, someone has a resource, someone has a need. This is an open sharing community, and it was just an amazing, amazing event. Next year, our goal is to take that nonprofit family and plug them in to that new resource center and really revitalize a 6-county network of nonprofits. Really excited about that. And looking at our volunteer program, this has been our best year ever for work groups. And I want to bring up our work group program because it does touch that whole sense of economy and economic development. We had 45 work groups come to the Valley to do service projects, to do gleaning in our fields, to do building projects. Black Forest Community Church is putting in a new fence right now. And an example would be our group from Estes Park. 20 folks. They stay at the Super 8. They had dinner on Thursday night at the Brew Pub, and then Hunan's the next night. True Grits that following night. The lunches are cooking at the shelter. I must say, those lunches those guys cooked, wow, Dan, that Friday meal, oh my God, that was so good. That was the best meal of all that I expressed right there. And then they all went on the Cumbres Toltec Railroad at the end. So service tourism is a really important part of our value system, is an important part of what we bring to the Valley and other folks bring to the Valley. And it, not like the gigantic events per se, but it's weekends, it's weeks, it's year-round, it's Christmas, it's spring break, and it brings, and people come here, they learn about the Valley, and we find a lot of folks that come on those service trips move here. We might have a new coordinator moving here from that Estes Park trip. Really excited about that. And then the last thing that we tout and that we're so proud of is our full-time volunteer corps. Where we talked about the generosity of the community and their ability to give things, the other thing this community gives is volunteer time. But long before I came here, Sister Angie and the Catholic Church started a program that said, this organization, we'll put a leader in a program, but we're going to staff it with volunteers. But we need, and these are full-time volunteers that give 1 year of their life. They work that last hour of that last day of that last week of their year. We have 21 new folks in our ranks right now. They're fantastic. I mean, you say that every year. People get a little bit burned out near the end, but right now, we've got such an incredible crew, and they're running circles around us with their enthusiasm, working in all aspects. And some of them are AmeriCorps, some of them are sponsored by churches, and then we have a recruiting pipeline from Belgium, Korea, and Germany. And if you go to some of our enterprises, you will see those volunteers active and being ambassadors to their country and being part of the fabric of our life right now. And many of these volunteers also return and give back to the community, or they stay here. And I have a racquetball game with Julian Mandel at 8. I don't know what time it is. I don't know if you know Julian. Julian is the new surgeon at SLV Regional Medical Center. Julian came as a volunteer to La Puente, his first experience in the Valley. He stayed a second year. And then he said, I think I want to go to college. He had not been to college. He went to Adams State University, met Amy, a student there, went to medical school, and he always said he was going to come back. And I didn't, that was talk. People say they're going to come back, right? And so this, not long ago, he just gave me a call, and he said, Lance, I've got my moving van. I'm about an hour out. You have some of your volunteers that can help me offload. So we offloaded his van. He's at the hospital right now. He's doing his boards. He had his boards today, so that's why we're going to play racquetball after this, because this is kind of stressful for me too. Just, And so we're going to go play that. But he wants to raise his family here. And when you ask him why he wants to raise his family here, it's because he learned that this is a community that really cares about people. And you can see that in the enthusiasm of what people bring. And, the people that are the hardest to care for, the ones that challenge our heart and our spirit, sometimes are those that are the most vulnerable. Those that have to hit that place of survival in their lives, where they have to fight for what they want, where they might make bad choices at a point during that fight. And we, as a community and as an organization, want to be a safety net for them and a place where they can rebuild and where we can partner with them to also be part of the fabric of this community and make this a great, great place to live that will attract service-minded people, that will have people who are vulnerable that then can participate in our economy, where we can rebuild. So that's my update. And I just noticed that I still have 4 seconds left over there. And, and from the bottom of my heart, too, just from the roots of the City Council years ago that I didn't know because I wasn't here, to the leadership that we have in this community right now, to this cool little downtown and our school districts and all that we are working on together. It is just fantastic to be partners with each of you. And we don't have to agree on everything to be partners and to work together for the greater good. We need that diversity to rub shoulders against one another and sharpen who we we are, and I look forward to becoming better. We can always be better. Alamosa can be better. La Puente can be better. I can be better. My racquetball game's kind of fading, so I'm not going to go there. But thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Lance. Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Lance, thank you for this update. I think it's really important that you are able to share with us and with the community all of the different things that La Puente does, because I do think it can feel like there are only certain aspects of that people know belong to La Puente. So thank you for that. What have you done? So with the uptick in homeless women, I'm assuming there's also an uptick in the trauma that they've experienced and things like that. How are you managing that as a shelter, and the other services that you have?
Well, we have received some permanent supportive housing vouchers, which we're trying to have incredible discretion over, because they're very, very special, that will provide support and scaffolding for the most vulnerable. So that is one effort, and that's the first partnership with the state in terms of bringing those types of resources to the valley. At the shelter, we're kind of doing the same old gig in that way. If we could wave a magic wand, I would want a second paid employee over there, a case manager who could support Tona on, she can't work 176 hours, that's how many hours in a week, who could support her in providing guidance and resources. So we use our AmeriCorps members to do the best we can with those outcomes. And half of the people that come to the shelter do exit with some form of income. Folks like Betty, others, we have to network them into our local resources to be able to find that final place where she is part of the community.
Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. Lance, thanks for coming tonight and giving us an update. We truly value what you do for this community. I truly value what you do for this community. There's been some talk in the community and on social media and that about people you take in at the homeless shelter. And I know that we've had some discussions up here as a council where if we can meet with you, and I know there's been meetings on the south side about that stuff. Can you comment on that if we can get a meeting together?
Yes. In fact, Heather and I are getting together. We have something in the calendar to kind of work up that agenda. I've brought that up with my board. I have a packet that you're going to get that is some of the trying to get past some of the mythologies that are out there in stories. So you can have, and a couple of council members asked me to put that together so you can see. And I think we're talking about the shelter, not about the other programs. But I'm really excited to get together to meet with you, to find where to identify our common values and to move forward. We also have some really good neighbors that are stepping forward and saying, yeah, we'll be part of a little group that will work with you. It's the folks that understand the mission but that also can bring light to our neighborhood impact there, to provide guidance and things. So we have some ideas. Whenever something comes up, I don't think all of you don't stop thinking about it or wait. We are constantly thinking and engaging and trying to learn, and I know that you are too. So it'll be really a wonderful time where we can identify our values, establish a goal, and come together so that I can listen and we all can listen to what you're hearing, and then you can hear our heart and find that common ground to kind of build and become better.
Thank you. Councilor Stefano.
Lance, I just want to thank you for the hard work that you guys do at La Puente. It's a much-needed organization. We have a lot of people that are in need these days, and a lot of homeless people coming up. There's going to be more, unfortunately. So I just want to thank you for the hard work you all do. It's a great organization, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and for all of you that have found your way to support us, have found your way to help those who don't have a voice, and to be candid in your thoughts and conversations with us so that we can become stronger. Looking forward to it. We just, the future is going to intersect us at any time, and I want to look back when we get there and say, wow, we really did a good job. We really made our community proud, and we really helped a lot of people in the best way possible.
Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lance, for this presentation. I think it's well needed because a lot of times people need to hear about what you're doing in the community and know that there are several different programs that you run. I personally would like to thank you for all the work that you do with the youth in our community and the kids, the little kids, I mean, there's no fault to them for the situations that they're in, especially the ones who are dealing with different challenges in their lives. So thank you for those programs, and I really appreciate all your volunteers who really, truly show that they love those kids. Because I've been to some of the field trips with PALS, and the way your volunteers really look over those kids, you're like mentors to them as well, and you're giving them that little bit of hope that they need that's going to help them rise above their circumstances. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ty.
Lance, it's wonderful for you to be here for this update. I can't remember when you were here last. I really can't.
I am so glad that someone
I'm glad you're here.
grabbed me by the collar, slapped me in the face, and said, "Come on, talk to those guys." I really am hide under my desk and in that back, but being here has felt really like talking to family. You guys know me.
Well, to their credit, Mayor, La Puente has had folks give us an update at least once a year over the last 4 years.
Well, I can't remember when Lance was here last, but, you know.
I'm not talking about news. I'm not asking you for anything, guys. I just thought, gosh, I could tell you some of the stuff that the team is doing out there, and so appreciate
that. Yeah, you know, communication fosters understanding among people. And when you come in and visit with us about all the different programs, it enlightens us and helps us to understand some of the true difficulties in our community. You know, I was telling you a story earlier about a woman that I ran into over, I believe it was near Denver or Hunt on 10th Street. And I was out there walking around, handing out brochures and things, and I came across this woman. And the car was full of stuff. And I said, "Do you live here?" And she says, "No." I says, "What are you doing here?" She says, "My boyfriend got arrested. The car broke down, and I don't know what to do." This was a face-to-face situation where I thought to myself, what can I do to help this woman? And what would I do if it was me? And I told you, Lance, what I told her. I says, "There's not a whole lot I can do for you. I can probably give you a few bucks out of my pocket." I says, "But I know a place where you can go if you need a good meal, hot meal, and a bed." And I recommended La Puente. She was so grateful. Thank you for what you do in this community, because when a person comes face to face with a need, there's La Puente you can send them to. Thank you, Lance. I appreciate it.
And I think that I will try to get over here with some greater frequency as other things are coming, because in the way where you know and you have your own idea or resource that can strengthen that concept or idea, will only be stronger.
Thank you. Appreciate your update. Thank you. Council will now move up to business brought forward by city staff. We had Public Works, Habitat for Humanity, request for fee refund. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, sir. Like Mr. Yoder told you earlier tonight, we have a request from Habitat for Humanity for fee waivers for the city fees associated with their latest project at 1605 Edison. They are a nonprofit ecumenical Christian housing ministry, building simple, decent homes in partnership with those in need of affordable housing. They provide those services to people with a strong history of monthly income between $1,100 and $1,600 for at least 2 years, depending on the size of their family. And they give them 0% interest mortgages. They typically build one new home per year, and their funding is heavily based on donations and grants. We've waived these fees in the past in an effort to further their vision and help provide homes to those who may not otherwise be able to afford them. So their fee request tonight is for $4,121.50. Of that money, $271.50 was the building permit. $150 were land use fees associated with a replat and a variance that they needed. And the rest was water and sewer tap and plant investment fees, and a wastewater surcharge.
Thank you, Pat. Historically, how do we handle these? We've had these requests before from Habitat for Humanity, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, historically, you've waived these.
Thank you, Pat.
You have granted these requests.
Councilor Vihil?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a great idea. This helps a current, a local family. And if you, a little bit of background on Habitat for Humanity, I've worked on a few houses, not here, but in service work throughout the years. The family is also required to put in hours for their own house too. So this is a good thing, and I would move that we waive the amount of $4,121.50.
Councilor Stefano, I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Coleman.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just like Councilman Vihil just mentioned, anything that we can do as a council to encourage decent, safe, and affordable housing for people in our community makes a huge difference, and it's an investment back into our community. So I also am in favor of that, waiving those fees. And Mr. Yoder, thank you for volunteering for that cause as well.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I would like to publicly thank Audrey Liu for her work through Habitat for Humanity too. She does a great job.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. Start voting, please. Ms. Suzanne?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on now to finance. We have a couple of items in finance. We have a public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 32-2017 and ordinance establishing the employee pay plan for fiscal year 2018. Thank you, Judy.
Good evening, Council. This will be the second reading for this ordinance. I don't know exactly what the procedure is for this because this is only my first time to present the budget, so.
So this is the second reading. Council approved it on first. This is something council does on an annual basis. The pay plan provides direction to staff in regards to how much we fund the different positions. The changes that have been made for the pay plan for 2018, based on the budget discussion, there is a 0.5% cost of living adjustment. And then we also placed a few of the new positions that we discussed. The outdoor community recreation position, the SRO with TSJC is also included in there at the same level as our other SRO. We also have the new position in the city manager's office for project management. And unless there's questions for staff, or if you want to open it up for the public hearing.
Thank you.
I had a question. Number one talks about the pay plan for elected officials. If that thing passes in November, can that be tweaked?
Yeah, we would do an amendment, an ordinance amendment. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 32-2017. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium, make your wishes known. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on ordinance number 32-2017, bring it back to council for further discussion or a decision. Councilor Stefano.
I move that we approve ordinance number 32-2017.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Susanna?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to the second item, which is a public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 31-2017, an ordinance making the annual appropriations for fiscal year 2018. Ms. Judy?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and do this one too.
Okay.
I told Judy she gets a one-year pass, so next year she's on the hook.
This is something that I would request just a little bit of patience on, given how significant the budget is. I know council's heard a lot of this through at least 3 different work sessions, 1 regular council meeting, so this is about the 4th time that we've gone over this information. But from a public perception, this really is the document that guides our next year specifically, but it also, through the CIP, lays out some of the goals for the next 5 years. There's a lot of work that goes into this. It's a bottom-up process. We begin with those who have the most knowledge on probably what is needed and what can be changed, and that starts within our departments, works its way up through meetings with the finance director and city manager, and then ends up in front of city council. And like I said, this is the 4th meeting, public meeting that we've had. And I guess actually technically the 5th public meeting, if we count the public outreach that we attempted to do as well. In regards to the budget, it's a large budget, and it has a lot of funds that are dedicated towards those. If we begin with the general fund, which is a majority of it from a sales tax, we assumed a 3% growth in sales tax. We also included a 0.5% COLA that's included to maintain a competitive pay plan. Additionally, about in 2014, council gave direction. They felt that our fund balance provided enough protection in case of an emergency, but they would like to use some of that without bringing it down too far for some of those capital projects that you were hearing from the citizens, such as streets and public safety. And so it was still very conservative in regards to we are nowhere near the 8% that's required. We're still very much above that, but we are using some of those funds. I think sometimes that can create confusion in the community in regards to how much revenue we have coming in versus what our expenses are. And the reason that it looks that way is that strategic decision that council has made in order to address some of those capital needs, especially in streets and public safety. If we look at just the revenue coming in and the expenses from just regular operations minus the capital, we can absorb about $700,000. So we, by all means, operationally are doing very well when we look at our expenses compared to revenue. We have about 1.8 in capital for the general fund. Of that, about $700,000 is absorbed through our regular revenue, and about 1.1 is what we're looking at with that fund balance with that decision by council. Moving on, we do have $250,000 budgeted in the non-departmental to pay for architectural services for the downtown master plan. We did apply for part of that is $100,000 for the downtown master plan, of which we have applied for a grant, and $150,000 of that is for the levy certification process, which council is aware is a very large project coming up. An FTE was added to the city manager's office. It's going to be the public relations and project specialist. The city manager's office also includes a 100% grant-funded part-time position for the healthcare sector partnership. The IT budget includes $2,000 to partner with the Boys and Girls Club Tech Academy. We added 2 full-time positions. One of them is funded 100% by TSJC, and the other one is a regular full-time officer. $50,000 is in fire operations to be transferred for the future purchase of a new fire truck in 2022. $100,000 was included in the Conservation Trust for the Inspire grant match. $15,000 was maintained for property abatement activities in the police support services. That's when we are unable to get a property owner to comply with some of our nuisance. We can go in there and abate it and then do a tax bill, but it will take time to recoup that. A seasonal position was added in Public Works to assist with street projects. And then one of the largest expenditures that speaks directly to what you were hearing from the community, $1,048,000 is budgeted for street improvements. $40,000 is budgeted for the conversion of street lights to LED. That will be the second year. Excel should be working on those right now. And again, we are continuing a line item for landscaping and beautification for $15,000. The enterprise fund, we are consistent with the budget on the ordinance that council had passed previously for the next 5 years on the utility rates. We continue to work on the purchase of water rights to address our water augmentation plan. $250,000 was forwarded from the 2017 budget to 2018 for the painting of the Craft Water Tower. $250,000 for storm drain lift station in the Victoria and Thomas. $500,000 to move discharge location at the wastewater treatment plant. $250,000 for repairs to the wastewater treatment plant. In the recreation fund, operational line items were increased appropriately for the new multi-purpose facility. An FTE was added, assuming a successful Inspire grant application, and $76,000 is included for repairs to the recreation center HVAC broiler system. We obviously do have other funds, but usually do not receive that much attention. So unless there are questions, council can ask questions, and we can answer any of them that you have.
Thank you. Councilor Griego.
Before you open up your public hearing, first I want to thank you and your staff for all the hard work. It takes a lot through the year to put this thing together, and you've done a lot of hard work. But on Monday's Meet the Candidate session, there was a question out there saying that we didn't have a balanced budget and we were to a tune of $800,000 deficit. And I've been here a long time, and I've always believed that we have always had a balanced budget. And I know you touched a little bit about it, but I wanted to ask some more questions, but you know how that thing breaks down. So I don't know if you could answer, do we have a balanced budget?
So it depends on how you define a balanced budget. When you look at the federal level, clearly we don't print our own money. So we are not using money that we do not have. And it goes back to a little bit of the explanation I had before, is that the city has been very, very good on how it handles its finances, and very much is conservative in how it budgets for revenue increases, and is very stringent on adding to the expenses. And because of that history, the fund balances have grown, and council was at the same time hearing that we needed to do more in streets and we needed to do more in public safety. And so council in 2014 had a work session, and there's very good discussion on what is council comfortable with for those different fund balances. Legally and per policy, we cannot get below the 8%, but council still did not necessarily want to get close to that 8% either. But at the same time, we were up closer to 20% in some items like that. So council very strategically gave direction to staff to enhance spending in the CIP, our capital projects, specifically in public safety and streets. And so we've been monitoring that very carefully. And so when you look at, if you consider balanced on, are we spending more than the revenue coming in, then I guess someone could make the argument that it's not balanced. But knowing that council has strategically been using the fund balance for some very one-time projects, capital projects, that then explains what the prerogative is of the city.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. My comment is similar. I was going to ask the same thing Councilor Griego asked, but I did want to state that the estimated balance forward for us this year is $15,593,000, in addition to the revenues that we're bringing in, which is $20,215,000. And those were numbers I did not have in my head on Monday. And so our total available, not that we would ever spend this, nor should we, is $35 million. And so I do agree with the assessment that if we're just looking at revenues and expenditures, it's not balanced, but that is not the way we should look at a public budgeting process.
And thank you, Councilor. I think having, I can talk percentages, but that does not mean as much as how strong the financial situation is for the city. If we were to be faced with an emergency like we have in the past with the salmonella, we would be able to get through that. But at the same time, I think council was hearing concern that how much of a budget do you need to have? And that's why there was a very good discussion, and it's something that council's fiscally conservative, and knowing that there's that much money there is a very good, comforting thought.
Councillor Hensley.
So my question is, I've heard a few comments, I've seen on social media, the question about economic development and the funds with economic development. And I know there were some explanations and stuff on that. Could you go through that again?
So it was a few meetings ago, so we've all slept since then. But we did change a little bit in our approach to the budget this year, in that when we look at what was happening 10 years and the multipliers that we were using, we were realizing that some of those line items that we had budgeted just in case, but we really didn't have anything planned for that. When you start multiplying those out 10 years, it can start doing some funky things with your budget and make it look like you're spending too much. And so what we did, and the line item for economic development is a good example, is we used to tie it to the revenue from a budgeting perspective that we were getting from the use tax. And we only planned the exact budget of about 40,000 of it, and then the rest of it was just in case. So if a project came up for economic development, there was funds in that line item. But when you start multiplying it out along with some of the other line items, it was creating some different things for our 10-year projection. So we really tightened that back up, realizing that if we do get a project, instead of needing it to be in that line item, council can do a budget adjustment and take it from the fund balance. So it's just a different way of using the flexibility, but it's a more accurate projection for our 10-year. And so technically, while the line item may look like it went down, because it is, we didn't cut anything that we have previously budgeted out of that line item.
Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Heather, thank you and staff for all the hard work you all put into the budget. And thank you, council, for going to so many work sessions in regards to the budget. I wish more people in the community would really come to these budget meetings so they can see exactly how we come up with the numbers that we come up with. I mean, we had that community meeting to where we opened up our books for the community to come in and see exactly where their monies are going. And it was sad to only see maybe one or two people from the entire community come in. And sometimes that I struggle with that, because sometimes people have complaints about how we spend the money, but no one comes in during that process to give us some positive feedback. So I just want staff to know, and I want council to know how much I appreciate everyone working on this budget. And the other thing I want to thank you for is for clarifying that we're intentionally spending money to reduce the fund balance. It's not like we're spending money we don't have. We're intentionally spending those funds to improve some of the infrastructure that our residents are saying that they feel are important, like our streets and some of our other infrastructure around the city. So I'm glad you clarified that, so that people won't have the idea that we're spending what we don't have, because that's not what we're doing. The other thing, if you don't mind, because I know some of the people who are here tonight, they were not at some of the meetings that we had in regards to the budget. Can you please explain briefly how staff, each department head, invest their time into finding ways to help reduce our expenses in their departments, and how much time they put into that part of the budget process, so that the public would know? Thank you.
So before I jump to that, I want to make sure, because we've talked a lot about streets, but the body cameras that we do have employed now with police is one of those other items. And so it very much was streets and public safety, which has been a consistent message that council has heard. And so that's a tangible project that would not have been possible if council would not have made the decision to use some of that fund balance. And so I think that's an important one. In regards to staff involvement in this bottom-up process, one of the examples of how hard staff works at trying to take a look at costs, I know when Pat started as the Public Works Director, he took a hard look at the routes we were running with our trash trucks, and if there was ways to do efficiency and those types of things. And combined with some changes there, plus a new truck, our gas and oil has dramatically gone down and stayed down, which helps us know from a budgeting perspective we can bring that back down to that level. It wasn't just a one-year dip and it's going to go back up. Staff really just throughout the year takes notes on, is there things that are either going to need to become a priority and may need an increase, or are there things we can cut and change and do things differently? So throughout the year, they're trying to keep track of changes and priorities. And then I would say probably in June at the department level is when they start meeting, and they go line item over line item of what changes are needed, where we can reduce. We really wanted to make sure that we were able to maintain the up to 4% for pay and the 0.5 COLA. So this year department heads really took a fine-tooth comb through that budget, and that's why when I provided the answer on the economic development line item, those that maybe we didn't need to have that just in case amount in there, we reduced those. Some of them where we had seen enough years where we were maintaining at that level, we felt comfortable bringing it back down. So we really took a fine-tooth comb. And then once the department heads enter their recommended budget, that's when they come and they meet with Judy and I, and we're probably talking just between those meetings alone, 40 hours of work if you put it all together at a minimum. And that's before we even then get to the level of presenting it to council. And of course, because council's very focused on making sure this is a good document, we have every single department head at every meeting to make sure we can answer your questions. And so it's why I wanted to take a little bit of time and go over these bullets, because we approve it once a year, but it's actually a very, very critical document and a lot of work goes into it.
Well, once again, thank you and the staff and council for all the time and dedications that you all put into the budget. Thank you.
And so with that, I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 31-2017. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium, make your wishes known. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mayor and honorable members of City Council. I appreciate the work you do, and there's many things in the budget I agree with. But I did my analysis, and maybe I can share that with you so we can talk apples with apples. And I'm not really here to criticize. What I think it's important is to challenge each other, the direction we're going. So let me give you my analysis, because these are the numbers I see, if I can share this with you. I'm not sure I have a copy of everybody. One every two people there.
Thank you, sir.
Again, this is what I see, and I use a bird's eye view, and this is the budget. And I compared the city to 2013. That's the audited statement as of 2013 as a base year, and then compared everything forward from that year. Kind of going through this, from 2013, if you go down, total taxes have increased 8.7%. Total license permits, a negative 20%. Total intergovernmental increased 24%. Total charges for services increased 129%. Total fines and forfeitures declined by 6%. Total investment income increased 646%. Total miscellaneous increased 42%. So total revenues have increased 11.58%. Expenditures. General government expenditures have increased 51.24%. Total public safety has increased 25.52%. Total public works have increased 40%. Total health and welfare has increased 27%. Total culture and recreation and parks has increased 33%. Now, capital outlay, that's discretionary. And if you compare it, well, what I think, because you are transferring in $1.2 million to cover the additional capital outlay, and I agree with that if that's your decision. So really, if you get down to the bottom line there, total expenditures is $1 million. It would be $1 million less if you compared it if you kept the same number from 2013 to 2018 on that line, then your total expenditures would have increased 31%. So my first question is, the trend is your revenues are increasing 11.6%, your expenditures are increasing 31%. That's a negative trend. If you look at excess funds, you can call it operating earnings, or you can call it in city funding, you call it surplus deficiency. In 2013, you had excess funds of $336,000. Your budget for 2018 shows a deficiency of $855,000. So you do have a negative budget. That's what you proposed, and I pulled these numbers exactly off of your numbers. Now, I agree with Heather. You have a strong reserve fund. And when I was running for mayor back when, I said that we ought to take some of those reserves and put them more into capital expenditures. And I see you've done that, and I congratulate you on that. But my question is, I'm a stakeholder in the city of Alamosa, and you're the board of directors. As Harry Truman says, the buck stops with you. And so my question as a stakeholder, when are you going to change the trend? You can do this for a while. You can have a negative budget for a while, but it's going to add up to the point where you're not going to have a strong surplus fund. And so I encourage City Council to exercise stronger leadership and control the budget expenses. I have two line items I'm critical of. I guess I shouldn't say critical, I said I'm challenging you. There's two line items I challenge you on, and the first one is information technology. Why has the city allowed information technology to grow from 137,000 in 2013 to 547,000 in 2018? That's a 296% increase. And just from 2017 budget to 2018 budget, that's a 21% increase. To me, that's a problem area. And you have wonderful staff there, but 547,000 and that faster growth in information technology, to me, would be a danger sign. And then the other one I'm critical of, because I hear every city councilman, if I ask you, what do you think about economic development? Well, absolutely, I think it's great. But as far as I can tell, economic development was allocated $35,000 in 2013, and 2018 is still $35,000. My question to you as a stakeholder in the city, when is City Council going to become serious about economic development? In my mind, it should be clearly in the area of $250,000 or so to get the city seriously involved in economic development. Well, that's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Broyles. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance? Ms. Judy?
Well, I can explain the IT.
We don't.
No, I don't need to. Okay.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
They're still having the public hearing, so
Okay.
she's just up there for when the public hearing is done.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance? Please approach the podium and make your wishes known. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on ordinance number 31-2017. and bring it back to council for further discussion or a decision. Councillor Hensley.
So do we ask questions from that, or do we just let it go? How does this work?
It's council's prerogative.
Absolutely.
So I would like to hear about the IT. I can only assume that the IT, I mean, technology has changed so much since 2013 to 2018. I have to assume that's part of the technology, but I'd like to hear that part. And then I guess I have a question. When you're looking at this, I believe there's different funding, correct? So like different funds that...
This is the general fund. Yeah, you have a lot.
Is this all from the general fund? I guess that's my question. Because isn't recreation...
It looks like this analysis provided tonight is just on the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor
Judy,
Hill.
did you want an answer from Judy on
Sure.
the IT
Judy,
question?
Please.
The reason there's culture and parks, because the parks fund is in general fund. Community rec is its own, but parks is in part of the general fund, so that's why that line is there.
Thank you, Judy.
And the reason the IT budget has gone up so much is because it's, cost-wise, yeah, we have more, like police are doing e-ticketing now, and the technology is just going like crazy, but the other part is that before, the technology was spread over everybody's budget. Everybody had a line item for hardware and software. Now all of those items are in IT's budget because they're the ones that know it, you know, what they need and what to buy, and so it was just all combined into their line item instead of having all the department heads trying to figure out their own IT. IT does everything. They tell them what their needs are, and it's worked really well because Jim and his staff have been able to save a lot of money because they know what you need and what you know, they don't get oversold because they know what they're buying. So that's the reason, part of the reason that the IT budget has gotten so large.
And so, and to further expand on that, so it was 2014 or 2015, I believe, we 2015? 2014, that we made this change. So those costs were within all the different departments, not only general fund, but enterprise and all of that. And so that it was spread out. What we did is we wanted to centralize it so it's more transparent from how much we are spending just on IT instead of it being kind of within each of the departments. And then also, as we anticipate that, you know, you can have IT departments that will say, well, every 3 years or every 5 years, we're going to rotate out the computers or different things like that. But sometimes a computer might last 1 or 2 years beyond that. And so what we wanted to do is by bringing it all into one fund, if we didn't need to replace that, it was still in the fund so it could start building a little bit to where then if you have something go out unexpectedly, we also then had a little bit of an IT fund that would be able to address that as well. The other part, and it should be offset if these are all the revenues, but clearly we added the FTE. That is the IGA with Monta Vista. So we went from a 2-person IT department to forming an IGA relationship or a partnership with Monta Vista, and we do now provide their IT services as well.
Those are reimbursed about $53,000 a year.
Yeah, so it's not 100% covering all the costs, but it's a good chunk.
Right. Councillor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. And to add to that IT stuff, I know over the last 4 years we've ran fiber out to the rec center. We've connected different parts of our town, and that costs money. And I'm glad that our IT budget has ballooned that much over the last 4 years because we need to be ahead of the curve on technology if we want to attract small business, if we want to attract jobs to this valley. So that's my comment on the IT.
Thank you.
I would say also every time we add, for example, the body cameras and everything that's mobile that we have for our officers, they all come with licenses. They need replacement, all of those types of things as well. And I guess if we're doing a response on everything, I'm not sure if it was 2015 or 2016. The budget used to be for ACID $19,100, and I think council decided that we wanted to contribute more to the ACID, and so we added $10,000 to go up to $29,100.
Okay. Counselor Daniel, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate sharing this with us, but I just wanted to say I disagree with Mr. Broyles' perspective. I believe that the increase in expenditures and the things that we have done to improve our infrastructure as a city has been very necessary and very important, and that does take money. He's absolutely right. If we continue spending, our fund balance is down. They won't be there. But I don't think anyone internally to us or to staff would be willing to do that. And so I believe the changes between 2013 and 2018 budget are, some of that is to be expected. We've changed a lot in technology and other resources since 2013. In addition, I think council's direction and guidance to staff based on capital improvements, based on the other things that we've asked you to look into and do, and some of the things that weren't getting done, like the wastewater treatment things, we've put money into those things that wasn't having money put into them. And so I appreciate the analysis, but I also think that this has been a reasonable budget, and I believe that staff has put a lot of time and energy into making sure we're not overextending our resources, and our 10-year plan, in my mind, reflects that. So thank you.
Councilor Griego.
In defense of the IT, when Jim came here, we didn't have IT. We had a room that had I think it was I didn't understand it. There's this big piece, it was a big computer or something. And I don't really understand all the computer stuff. But he has brought us along, build an IT program that we can use. Now we're using computer. We used to get these big old packets of paper, and have to go through all this stuff just to go through all what was going on. Now you just get on your computer and it's easier and it works. On the economic development, all the years that I've been here, we have put a lot of money into this, over the years and years. And sure, if we had $250,000, and back then, I don't know if you remember when we used to fund a director, it never worked. But we have, every year, there has not been one year that we have not put money into economic development. We have put it with ACED, with all these everybody that's trying to do economic development. We've sent our city manager to learn economic development more and more and get better at it, to revitalize our downtown and stuff. So I think, I wish we had an extra $250,000 so we could try to lure industry here to do more jobs. But it's a tough deal, and I think the amount that we are putting in, it shows that we still are interested in economic development and creating jobs and stuff. So I kind of disagreed on that. And I've been here the longest, and I've seen what we've done with economic development. And we worked with you years ago on stuff, so it's not something like the city's taking a back seat on this. They've always, they've always put money into stuff like this, so.
Thank you. Councilor Stefano.
I just want to say that I've been here 4 years, and I've seen a lot of changes in the IT department. And I know for a fact that technology is not cheap. Mr. Grego spoke about the computers and all this. We're talking fiber optics, a lot of different things that go into this budget. And I think as far as economic development also, I think we've come a long way in the 4 years that I've been here, and I can see it visually. So I agree with our original budget that we came up with. A lot of hard work to the staff. Thank you, Heather.
Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. They say that public work is like the heartbeat of the city. IT is the brains. In order for our staff to be effective, in order for our team to be productive, we need to make sure that they have all the tools needed in order for them to do their jobs. That's why we invest in IT. I understand, Mr. Broyles, you haven't had an opportunity to be at several of our meetings, so I'll just clarify some things with you. When Jim works on his IT budget, or whenever he brings something to council, most of the time, he's done his homework so thoroughly to where it's almost like we're getting a surplus in certain areas with the money that he's saving us. So our IT department and their team, they do everything within their power to make sure that they keep costs down and make sure that our city is running effectively. In regards to the budget, I too work on budgets. And as you know, and you can let me know if I'm incorrect, but when you're working on a budget, you can make any numbers come up to whatever you would like for them to be to create a trend. You could do it based on 2013, 2000 if you want to, or you could use some more realistic numbers like 2015 to 2017 to have a better picture of what the trend may be. It's not that council is creating a spending trend. What we're doing is we're adjusting our spending budget to some of the costs that are associated with the growth of the city. When it comes to economic development, there are three parts to economic development. There's attraction, retention, and expansion. The funding that we have right now is a lot of it is going towards the latter two, which are, I believe in this instance, is very important. That's the retention and expansion of the existing business. And here's why that's important. Whenever you're able to keep your businesses here thriving and growing and doing things to help them, it's a lot easier to work with what you have right now than to go out and try to attract the big box stores or the other employers that people feel they want in our town. So I believe that council is really trying to do all that they can do, and the staff is doing what they can do with what resources we have available. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else have a comment before I speak? We do have a motion and a second on the floor, don't we? No. Not yet? Okay. The public hearing is it's closed. Mr. Broyles, thank you very much for this analysis. I know you worked hard on this and you've had questions throughout the budgeting process. I really hope that some of the answers up here enlightened you. Maybe you have more questions. I'm not really sure. One of the things that I do agree with you about is that sometimes we have to get a handle on our expenditures. Definitely. So we're going to take a good hard look at that and see what we can do. And I think we do it for the most part in trying to get a handle on our expenditures. Sometimes things come up that we have no control over. There are things that we have to expense money on that are unforeseen expenses. There are things that are wastewater treatment plant that are going to require a lot of money. IT always requires a lot. There's a lot of money that needs to be expensed for our community, the community of our size, and there are a lot of needs that we still have. And I totally agree. If we had more money for economic development, it would be great. Unfortunately, we just don't really have that much money. I'm sure we could find it somewhere if we needed to. When it comes to economic development, my personal opinion is it's basically about jobs. If we can get somebody in here that can give us some good, decent jobs, high-paying jobs, that would be great. Finding a company like that is very difficult. But for the most part, we work with staff in trying to develop a budget that is workable and a budget that basically meets the needs of the citizens and a lot of the needs of the organizations that we try to work with as well. Anyway, Councilor Stefano.
I move that we approve ordinance number 31-2017 for fiscal year of 2018.
I will second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 31-2017?
Yes.
Yes.
I had a question for you, Council. When we talked about funding for outside agencies, there was some talk maybe about finding some money to give to Society Hall. I wanted to see if you guys want to talk about that. I know we upped our money for Alma by $1,000.
So Councilor Vigil, if I may, Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the part that I remember about that conversation is that we expected them, because their proposal was not complete, that they would have the same opportunity as other organizations to come forward to us later in the year, and that we, at that point, had decided not to add money to the budget because their proposal was not done adequately.
Thank you, Councilor Vigil. I'm not sure we want to amend the budget at this point in time. We have a motion and a second to accept the budget as it is.
Well, I just saw an opportunity for us to, before we second it, to amend it, so it was actually a perfect time to amend it. But thank you, Ms. Daniel, for your, yeah, you're right, thanks.
Yeah, I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Start voting, please. Ms. Susanna?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Parks and Recreation. Mr. Rice. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, Council, you have two resolutions for you tonight. The first one here, we're just really creating the legal boundaries for our new Southwest Park. And before I forget, a placeholder name is Montana Azul Park after this subdivision. We haven't officially named it. We'll do our usual public process for that, but for the purpose of documentation and moving forward, I will be referring to it as Montana Azul Park. So this is, just to review, a dual-purpose park, the stormwater management. It's an area identified in the comprehensive plan as being underserved in park space. And it also has some of our lowest income residents, underserved population there. So it's a real opportunity to complete a much needed project. If you look at Exhibit A up there, those are the official boundaries we're proposing for the park. In the next resolution, 24, I'll talk a little more about amenities and funding and explaining it a little bit more. But again, this first resolution is establishing the legal boundaries of the park, and that is a requirement of GOCO funding. They would only fund in a determined city park. Any questions on this first resolution?
Councilor Griego.
No questions, just some comments. I want to thank you and your staff for all the hard work that you put into this park, because that area, once we built those new schools out there, it's growing and it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And the subdivisions out there, they're families. And the closest park, I can't even say where the closest park is, you know.
Yeah.
So to take an idea and turn a ditch, a water ditch, into a park is a good idea, you know, because it serves two purposes. And it's a needed thing. And I think eventually, as this thing continues to grow, as this wildfire continues to move, we're going to need other parks further down, because that thing those subdivisions are coming in and they're taking areas that were dumping sites and turning them into nice subdivisions. And those homes, I hate to use the term low income, because you're talking about $150,000 home there, you know, and those people that are paying for those homes and living there, something like this, to my heart, I really appreciate what you've done there, and it's long needed. So,
thank you. I think a lot of the credit should go to Pat, because it was his idea for the dual purpose, and we have in our field we have seen this trend in the Southwest. So, you know, once that light bulb came on, I think we've all been running with it. So thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I too, Andy, would like to thank you, Pat, and the rest of your staff for identifying an opportunity in this area. I can still remember when I was working with CRHDC and we were coming up with development plans and ideas, and I'm going to be quite honest with you, we never thought of utilizing a retention pond as a park area. So the people in the community were so excited when you all identified this opportunity, and it brought so much joy to them. But another thing that I enjoyed was when we had that community meeting outside in the area over there. So the people in that community, what happened was they came to the outside meeting, and we had good weather that day.
Yeah.
And then not only did we hear from the adults from the community, but we got a chance to hear from the little kids and let them kind of draw out what they think that community should look like. And they did it with sidewalk chalk on the ground as well. So I really appreciate this creativity that staff is utilizing right now. And I think with this creativity, there's no limit to how far we can go as a city. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Stefano.
Andy, I think it's a really great idea to have a park in that area. There's going to be a lot of children there, and our whole emphasis is on the children, giving the children something to do, and I think this is an awesome project that Pat and you came up with. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Daniel.
Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I move that we approve resolution number 23-2017, establishing Montaña Azul Park.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I've got a couple of comments, and it went off the screen. But a couple of challenges that I see is pedestrian traffic across Craft Avenue between the parks.
Yeah.
That may be an issue for us in the future. I think it's something we're going to need to address, whether we're going to have pedestrian crossings there or whatever. But that's going to be an area that's going to be utilized by folks on either side of the parks.
Yes,
and
sir.
so we're going to have to look at how we're going to deal with that. The other issue that I see is this road S108 that is still unpaved. And I had an opportunity to visit with some of the residents in that area, especially when it's extremely windy. A lot of the traffic is going down over towards the schools. A lot of dust is being generated to the health and safety of the residents along that road. So there are a couple of opportunities and challenges that we need to face when we're dealing with how we're going to improve Road S108 as well as the crossings on Craft. That's something that we really need to look at. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, when we started talking about this, the crossing at Craft was one of the first things we identified as needing to be addressed, because right now you won't see very many people crossing at that location. You'll see them crossing at the corners where, at least from a traffic safety perspective, that has a visual to alert traveling cars that there's probably potential pedestrian crossings. So clearly, when we started talking about this and needing to span Craft for the full build out, we were concerned about if we were going to be encouraging pedestrian traffic, because it's about 40 in that stretch right there. We, went back and forth on, do you want to slow it down or not, and then landed on no. I don't think many of the residents want that necessarily either. Pat won't let me do a speed bump, and he's convinced me on why that's not appropriate. But what we've looked at is putting some signage that's a good distance away because of the speed limits, to where if there's a button pushed, that it would start blinking and would alert vehicles that someone is potentially crossing, and then obviously maybe some pavement markings or something like that. In regards to Road 108, that's up to council discuss if you want to stay consistent with the policy that the developers pay for the paving of the streets, and/or you can look at a special improvement district in regards to assess the fees onto the nearby properties for those types of improvements.
Right. Tremont Street, north of the eastmost development, is that, do we have curb and gutter along that edge? Is that, and was that?
Pat, do you want to come up here?
Who owns that property? Who owns that? Do you know, Charlie? Mr. Martinez. So he put in curb and gutter there as well?
I think the developer did.
Oh, the developer did, all the way across the street there? Pat, thank you.
You bet, sir. I'm not sure exactly where you're talking about.
Tremont Street, just along the north boundary of the property, is that curb or and gutter?
The north side does not have curb and gutter, the
Okay.
south side does.
Okay, so did Mr. Martinez participate in the building of Tremont Street all the way to the other end or not?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I believe that was
So
all funded
basically,
by
we have the
CRHDC.
same issue on South 108. Okay.
Well,
thank you.
CHRDC paid for Tremont, not the city. I'm not sure if you heard him say that.
The developer?
CRHDC
Okay.
funded
Okay.
the construction
Thank
of those streets, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You answered my questions. I appreciate that. Any other discussion? Start voting, please. Ms. Suzanne?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Resolution 24-2017 is probably somewhat familiar to you, council, because any GOCO project requires express kind of support from the city council. And so with our skate park or the multi-purpose facility, we had similar resolutions. This is a good opportunity, though, to kind of talk to you about the preliminary plan. So if you want to take a look at your screens in Exhibit A there, this is about the third version of this. And again, I want to thank Dan and Pat for helping to develop this as we've kind of taken our public outreach and evolved where things are. For example, we heard, well, first of all, this is the east side of Craft Avenue, if you're wondering, and so that's what we are going to pursue with GOCO, is phase one would be this east side of Craft Avenue. And one of the things we heard was, well, if you put the bathrooms all the way on the eastern side, say by that soccer field, and my family's or my kids are on the western side, it's too far. So starting with the parking there along Craft, next to that is shown a couple bathrooms, the little rectangles. Above that is a hexagonal or maybe even an octagonal, actually, pavilion, which would be a little bit unique to the city, maybe a little bit larger gathering space to accommodate larger families. Next to that begins the about approximate quarter-mile walking trail, a crusher fine, ADA compliant trail. You can see it has a middle spur through it at a couple locations there. Next to it, a concrete basketball court. And moving on, the little circles you see are native plantings, xeric plantings, some trees. We would intend to keep some of the middle of that with the artificial wetlands. Some of the feedback was we want to keep that feel there, and maybe it attracts a certain type of wildlife. So we are not planning on filling the entire park and putting grass over it. We want to keep that native feel. We want to conserve water. We want to do all of this stuff to be prudent. As we're continuing to move east there, you see a second parking area. There's a couple little pavilions, more like the traditional ones you'd see at our current parks. And then that soccer field is a youth-size field. We don't have the room or really the need for a full-size soccer field there. We need a play space. But this is an opportunity for small-sided games for adults and everything from kite flying to whatever you can do in an open field. But at Carroll Park, we have plenty of soccer space. We don't necessarily need a full-size soccer field here. So this is a preliminary plan. Right now, costs are estimated about $450,000, $470,000. I do anticipate we will be applying for a minimum of $300,000 to the maximum $350,000 from GOCO. Requires a 10% cash match of the project, not of the grant. So we're looking at about a minimum of a $45,000 upwards to maybe $70,000 cash match to have a strong application. And that's something I'm working on right now, as it's due November 2nd. And if you remember, GOCO has gone to a once-a-year cycle. So this is our chance. In conclusion, public outreach has been positive with this project. There's a lot of momentum here. I know staff is excited. We're moving forward. If there's any questions on the project, this would be a good time.
Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. Andy, this looks great. I'm happy to see a basketball court there. Is there any way, and if I'm wrong, just tell me, maybe we could, on the perimeter or throughout the whole facility, the whole grounds, could we put like maybe a 9-hole disc golf? Or something for kids to go play? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you can certainly put something like that out there, or you might even be able to have temporary baskets around that multi-purpose field. You know, I will tell you, on the public feedback, it wasn't one of the higher items. The items you see on here were the highest rated items: walking trail, playground, basketball, soccer. I know it looks maybe even a little bit traditional or generic, but that is what we did. A scoring system based on the 2 public outreaches with a weighted system, like put your top 5 amenities with 5 next to the number 1 amenity. And, you know, walking trails and playground space were the top. I would imagine as we look to phase 2, we wouldn't duplicate everything, but those key amenities, a walking area, a playground, and then maybe something different. Splash pad, you know, obviously we will be getting into greater cost, but we will, as we would go on to a phase, we would do more public outreach, examine costs, and go from there.
And Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not sure if you said this, for the playground, we are looking at this being one of our first ADA accessible playgrounds?
Yeah, very, very important point. This is we are looking at making sure this playground is an adaptive population playground that involves a little more specialized fall zone material, maybe a poured in place, if you guys have seen that before, not engineered wood fiber or pea gravel you see at some of our playgrounds. It's more expensive, but the need is there for an adaptive population playground, and that is definitely our plan here. And it's not just the fall zone. Then we look at the actual playground itself, and we're looking at one where a wheelchair can actually get up on a platform and go around it. So that has been a primary goal of this playground, certainly.
Councilor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. Heather, you pretty much covered what I was about to ask about the ADA, which is good because people in our community have been bringing that up a lot, and I think it's about time we start addressing that issue and making it more accessible. Yes. So I'm glad that we are addressing that issue. The other thing, when I remember when we were out there that day, a lot of the parents were concerned about parking and how the parking was going to be designed. Yeah. It looks like you all did you put a lot of thought into the parking. So can you tell me how you came up with this parking arrangement?
Well, I know we were trying to maximize it, but that probably would be a better question for Pat, because he designed the parking.
You may have only had one item, but.
I think initially we were considering the parking on Craft. I put it on that side because I wanted to minimize the traffic as much as we could on the dirt road, and B, I wanted to provide a bit of a buffer between traffic and the children. Exactly. So, but then as we got further into the park development and just conceptualizing the amenities that we wanted to see, all of a sudden I thought, well, we can't have a soccer field without a parking lot. So that's why we added the additional parking over there. The number of spaces have been determined by general parking guidelines and American planning estimates for, they tell you how many parking spots you should have for a soccer field. they tell you how many parking spots you should have for a playground, things like that.
Well, thank you so very much, and I appreciate you all identifying and addressing, looks like a large number of the things that the residents wanted in a park, so thank you.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So, wow, first of all, so this is amazing. Thank you. I remember quite a while ago, some community members from this area of town came and said they really wanted a park, and it's really neat to see that coming to fruition, hopefully with the grant. But I did have just a couple of questions. Compared to, and I'm not good with sizes, so pardon me, but compared to other parks in our community, what size park is this comparable to?
And Counselor, do you mean this half of it, or do you mean full build out?
I think this half, just for me to see this.
Okay.
You know, so we're probably looking at about, Pat, feel free to jump in, about 3 acres on this side, a little bit larger than the other side, and the other side's about 2.5. I can't rattle off the size of the parks in terms of acreages, but
sorry.
If I had to guess, I'd put it just about in the middle. I don't, we're not going to have as much area as Cole Park or obviously Carroll, but I think we're going to be quite a bit larger than Zapata, quite a bit larger than
Diamond.
Diamond.
What about Boyd? Is it similar to Boyd Park?
Probably.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a visual in my head, so thank you for that.
Actually, I think it'll be a little bigger than Boyd.
A little bigger than Boyd.
I do
Okay.
too.
And then, Andy, do you have any worries about the match? So when we're talking the $40,000 in the rec fund, or the variation that might be for this GoCo grant, because I know you're working on it, are you running into any challenges where you think we're not going to be able to do that with the current rec board, or the concerns about anything coming up in the future?
I think there's challenges, but when you look at community need, and that's a decision that Heather and Finance and I and you guys will follow up on, but I think we'll be okay, and I've been directed to pursue this, and so no, more I want to make sure we get what the community wants and needs and what we can afford, and go from there.
And then are those 2 little boxes next to the parking lot also bathrooms? No.
I believe those are smaller pavilions, just kind of additional pavilions. I mean, say you have a nice park like this and you only have 1 pavilion, well, our reservation phone number is going to be lighting up, right? So it's nice to have those multiple pavilions like Cole Park, where we on some weekends, all 3 of them are booked. So those are kind of more cheaper. We could build those pavilions. The hexagonal one would be a little bit more nicer, gathering space. I envision that being very popular among larger families, and having meeting there or anything. So excited for that.
Thank you.
Counselor, to also add a little bit more information to your question, as you know, we had to tighten up the CIP for Parks and Rec, and because of that, some of the projects that are coming up immediately aren't as exciting. You got the irrigation replacement and some of those. And so what our commitment was to council and to the rec board is that every year we would try to pull one of those projects that would be GoCo eligible and try to make a go at it. So some of these other ones that aren't as exciting aren't GoCo eligible. And so our commitment was to try to at least keep some of that excitement and try to keep tapping into outside funding through GoCo type of thing. So it's in line with that we've talked with the rec board as well.
Councillor Hensley.
Okay, so I think outside the box a little bit. So, so my question is, it may totally be unrealistic, but the idea of the park, is it possible to tie that into another Kaboom thing, or doing something similar to Kaboom to do the park part of it?
You can only do Kaboom once.
Is that how it is?
Yeah, so now if you want us to try to coordinate some kind of community and thing with how it gets installed.
And I don't know if that saves or not, but it was just an idea, because that was such a great event.
It doesn't
and really
save. I don't think it would save.
We actually will install a lot. We already wiped those costs off the playground.
So it makes it
and
cheaper.
Stuff. Yeah, but certainly to get service clubs involved in the community, I mean, I think that's a good idea. I just wouldn't count on additional much savings from that.
Okay, and that was, it was just a brainstorming idea, but thanks.
Councilor Griego.
Some comments on the dirt road there. It has a name now, doesn't it, Pat?
Foster.
Foster. All the way up to that water tank is city. From there past, it's county. So I've had an opportunity, because it's in my area, I've had an opportunity to talk to some of those adjoining property owners, and they would like to do something, some kind of an SID. The developer that built those houses there, did they put monies aside for the future for building that part of the street?
Not to my knowledge.
Is that
That was many years ago. I'd have to try to research that.
Is that something that, when it comes to it, they would have to come up with part of that money, or now it lies on the property owners now?
It would be on the property owners now.
Yeah. But they are interested in doing something, because it would develop their properties out there. And the only problem we have is, like I said, half of that is county. And I don't know if the county would go ahead and do the other half. That's.
They weren't willing to participate on 10th or Craft this year, so I don't know if we could time it where they had budget monies available. Maybe that's a possibility.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking along the same lines, Councilor Griego, about the improvements to that particular part of the parking lot on the east side of the park. Is the city going to basically fund the improvements along that gravel road, that street?
We will not be changing anything related to the street. So if council wants us to look at talking to property owners for a special improvement district to fund improvements, I mean, that's something we can look at doing. But as far as for this project, there is no improvement of the street.
What you see there is curb and gutter coming out of the parking lot. I would plan on putting curb and gutter in the parking lot, in the park, and bringing it out and trying to make it so that it would match grade and horizontal location for curb and gutter on the street when it's eventually built. But if we can make our best shot at it, our best guess at it, without a full comprehensive design, but if it doesn't work, you're only looking at 40 or 50 feet of curb that needs to come out.
And you plan to do the same thing on the west side?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Pat. That's good. Thank you. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you. I move that we adopt the resolution number 24-2017.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Susanna?
It passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. And we'll now move on to committee reports. Who has a committee report? Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the tree board meeting on the 11th of this month. We are looking at some grants for more trees under power lines. One of the things that the group talked about was not necessarily putting it in a city park, but what other city property could we look at? And I thought that was really innovative and neat. So the committee is working on looking at some different areas around. There also came up a possible partnership with Adams State University with some donations they've received for trees that they may not be able to use all of this year, and we could be potentially a recipient of that. They would want some kind of recognition with like a plaque or something near the tree, but that's something that they are looking at. And he thought that it would be great for the new park that we actually just talked about, the Montaña Azul. We also closed out a 2017 grant. The park staff and the chair, Marilyn Lozier, closed it out with a final report. She said how much the Parks Department helped with that, and really that the tree board wouldn't do anything without the Parks Department, honestly. There is a Water Smarts Flora website coming up. She is working on that, and that will have information about flowers, trees, shrubs, vines, and grasses. And it'll be good information for community members about what's low maintenance and low water. And they're making sure that it also has a mobile app, like not a mobile app feature, but that when you open it on your phone or smaller device, it looks good. So she's making sure that that web interface looks great. Also, anyone can add to that list, which would be wonderful. They also wanted us to add a sign to the recycling center about the uses and benefits of mulch. Apparently, there is a lack of public knowledge about the positive uses of mulch, and people have seen it in certain tree board members' yards and asked why they have it and wanted to know if they wanted them to go get a shovel from home and help them remove it. So mulch education is coming. And then they wanted the community to know that our parks crew goes out and cares for the trees. And Marilyn, the chair, is working on articles to share with the community because many people don't know who takes care of the trees, and she wanted to make sure, and the board did, to make sure that the city gets the credit they deserve for the work that they do on all of that kind of stuff. And so it was a really good meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Daniel. Councillor Hensley.
All righty. I had a couple of board meetings. Marketing board, the main thing there is they do have an ad out right now to hire a new executive director. In the meantime, the 3 people that work there right now are acting as interim. They're sharing the duties. So that's going on there. I went to my first rec board meeting, and I do really enjoy the rec board. It was a lot of fun. It's kind of nice to be a part of a board of something where it's, and I'm not saying the other things aren't positive and things like that, but there's just something about recreation that you leave there pretty happy. And so it was a great first meeting for me. I won't say there was anything necessarily substantial, things that we haven't already spoken about here. But I'm really happy to be part of that board and look forward to coming back with other reports as it comes along.
Thank you. Anyone else have another committee report? I attended the policy committee meeting in Denver, and I think I sent an email out to each and every one of you specific to all the, now Councillor Hensley will be coming back with the final figures on everything that the executive board will weigh in on. Some of the interesting things dealt around still marijuana, broadband, and PERA. And there was an excellent article in the paper this morning about PERA. You know, government employees like us, we can City of Alamosa participates in PERA. But they were basically waiting to see what the school system was going to do, as well as a few other entities. There are some changes that need to be made there, but we'll wait for your report, Ms. Liz.
Next Friday.
Next Friday. Thank you so much for being on that committee. It means a lot to all of us. Any other committee reports? Move on to staff announcements. Thank you, Ms. Heather.
Thank you. If I could request, if you could forward that email to me as well. We usually have Jolene tracking the legislative stuff, and it helps to prepare her on kind of what's going to be a hot topic and what to track and all of that.
I will do that.
That would be helpful. Okay. The other, I think as you saw through an email, the city was successful in securing a $25,000 grant through DOLA. This is to assist in the planning and outreach for the river corridor enhancements and trying to determine what specifically people want to see. Obviously, through the comp plan, we learned that is one of the top priorities is to see enhancement of the river corridor, but that doesn't necessarily tell us exactly what they want to see. So we're very excited to get that funding to partner with Trust for Public Lands and the local food coalition and the farm park to continue that public outreach. There's been several questions at the last few meetings of the intent for council to meet with the La Puente board. The meeting that Lance, myself, and Luke Yoder have set up is on November 6th. And so the reason we're involving Luke is he's going to look at potentially facilitating when we get to that meeting. And so when the three of us meet, we're going to just discuss what's the best format, how can we make it most comfortable, all of those types of things. I think we also talked about is if there's any public outreach we want to do first, how to best collect it, all of those types of things. So that has been scheduled. The Public Works Director search is going well. We are trying to move quickly. We have completed the phone interviews yesterday, and we have already selected 3 to come for in-person interviews. And hopefully, if that goes well and background checks and everything, maybe at the 1st of November, we can make an offer and get someone here quickly. So that is moving nicely. And then the last one is I just wanted to update council that there is a lot of promising activity in the valley going on in relation to industrial hemp. There's a lot of different growers. They're getting a lot more organized, as well as processing it in the valley, and then partnering with agencies on the Front Range that can identify the markets for it. And so it's very exciting just from the water use perspective of it. Some farmers see it as a way to rotate through in regards to the use of their land. And with the partnership of ASU, they're able to get different types of seed. And then it also ties into research and all of those other types of things. The other exciting part is Power Zone, which is, I believe, up in the center area. is very cutting edge on manufacturing new equipment that can help with the growing and cutting and processing and everything with the hemp. And so when you talk about keeping jobs here and strengthening our economy and all of that, it's exciting to see these pieces come together and to build some strength. So while it may not be within the city limits, it's definitely very good for the valley economy. And it's great to see partnerships forming across the valley, and ASU playing a very strong leadership role in that.
Thank you, Ms. Heather. Is that it for staff announcements?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We'll move on to council comment. Who has a council comment? Councilor Grego.
I guess I'll start. I attended the Meet the Candidates on Monday. I wanted to thank Keith from the Valley Career and Randy. They did a great job. But what I really wanted, what made me feel good, because I've been doing this for a long time, is that there's people still interested in participating in government and making sure that this community moves forward. And we had a big crowd out here, so people came to see who's running, and everybody did a great job in presenting what their ideas and answering the questions. Those, it takes a lot to take these positions and to do all this hours, day in, day out, so it takes a lot, so I really appreciate that. I wanted to also ask a question. When are we going to start pursuing finding the judge position? I know he's already emailed us that he's planning on leaving the first part of December, so I think that's something the council needs to start. And I don't know how the process is, what the process, city manager, so maybe you can let us a little bit.
So my understanding is he indicated he does not plan to renew his contract, which goes through the end of December. I'm not sure if they've canceled court for holidays or not, but I think we get him through the end of December. Holly is preparing draft advertisements, a draft schedule. We want to recommend to council next Wednesday during the work session that we move quickly on this. We feel it'd be beneficial to try to get a little bit of overlap. Even if council decides they want to head a little bit in a different direction on philosophical items, the process itself, some of the behind-the-scene routine things would be very helpful if we could have a bit of crossover there. And so Holly is pulling together kind of potential timelines, looking at the process you guys utilized the last time you went through this, and just going to have materials for you at your work session next week on Wednesday.
Thank you. Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 quick comments also from Monday night. There was a good discussion about what we have done on the south side as far as streets or infrastructure or anything like that. I'm wondering if, versus what we do on this side of town, is there any way we can, maybe you, Heather, and your staff could come up with some history on that and what we've spent actually down there and educate
So we
people?
are going to look at the past 5 years. We're going to look at all investments. So there's streets, there's roads, there's sewers and water and all those types of things. But then there's also been some park investments when you look at Zapata Park and some of those things as well. So we're going to do a map. It's something we find really interesting, and Pat was sharing with me that honestly he had to get out the ward map to figure out where the wards really are, because from a staff perspective that's not how we think, and that's not how things feed into the CIP or anything like that. But it was something that we wanted to make sure from just our credibility perspective that we're clear on where the investments have been made and those types of things. And so we will be pulling that information together, and clearly we'll share it not only with council, but our commitment to all individuals running is that when it's something related to the election, we share it with all candidates as well.
Thank you, Heather. And then my second thing is ballots are in the mail, and you'll be getting your ballot here pretty soon. So I don't care who you vote for or what you vote for, just vote. Thank you.
Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to say I appreciated the meeting on Monday night. I felt like there was a lot of good information, a lot of good questions, and a lot of great participation. And I know that takes staff time, and so I appreciate everyone being here for that. And then I had a question. I personally, and I can't imagine I am the only one, keep almost running into Adams State University students crossing on what would be a red light for them and a green light for me, and then they're staring at me while I'm driving down the road. I realize that they're pedestrians and we have to stop for them, but I wonder if there's any outreach we can do with Adams State and maybe some more education with the students. I don't know. I'm just worried about someone getting hit when we're used to driving through the green light and expecting them to obey their little stoppy hand thing.
And I'm assuming you mean the crossing there on First is where you're noticing this. We'll do some brainstorming, and I'll talk to Dr. McClure and check on that.
Councillor Hensley.
I'm not making excuses. I'm wondering if because of all the work that's being done, we have a lot of new students and they've never had to deal with that really till that street has started again. So and so I'm not making excuses. And, but I do think that for a while we all got into bad habits that there was no traffic there, and so we just kind of crossed. So maybe just reminding of that. And then since we're talking about Adams State, it is homecoming week. So just thought I'd mention that it is homecoming week for Adams State, and there will be a great parade at 10 a.m. downtown Alamosa, and then obviously the game, things like that. So just encouraging everybody to have their spirit and go Grizzlies.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank all of the candidates and participants who came out on Monday. I think everyone really did a good job of explaining their viewpoints. I have a statement that I need to make. Over the past few weeks, some people in our community have approached me and said that a couple people have made bold statements that I am in favor of bringing marijuana sales to the city of downtown. Let it be known that I work with the youth in our community as a football coach, as a volunteer reader in the Alamosa Literacy Council, as a community spokesman for Save the Children, as a volunteer facilitator for CRP. I strongly discourage the use of all drugs. The use of drugs goes against what I teach our kids, and it goes against what I stand for. Now, just to be clear so everyone would know what I actually have said about the marijuana issue, the marijuana issues that are on the ballot were citizen initiated. Now that the ballots are out, it is going to be up to the voters to vote to either not have marijuana or to have marijuana sales. It is completely out of the hands of council. Whatever the voters decide, council will have to abide by. Thank you.
Councilor Griego.
I just wanted to make a comment on Councilor Vigil's question about how much money's been spent in Ward 4 and Ward 3. I think for years and years, this community, I know when I first come on, this community was divided, south side, north side. And it seems like every time that word pops up again over and over, and it continues to, that continues to live on. And I would wish it, coming from this council, when we ask questions, we should ask in Ward 4, in Ward 3, in Ward 1, or Ward 2, not south side, north side, because for the longest time, we fought and fought. This is one city, the city of Alamosa. And I lived it when it was divided and when monies were spent only what they would call Ward 1 and 2. But I think it has to come from this council, and I hope the new council or whoever, the present council, quits using that, quits dividing this community, and let's look at this as one city of Alamosa, and Public Works, the police, everybody's done their job to spread money throughout the whole city of Alamosa, and I appreciate that, but the use of south side, north side, it has to end someday, and I hope it starts from this council. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Councilor Stefano?
You know, being councilman in Ward 4, I'm really concerned about the south side. I don't know where all these comments come from about the south side. As councilman there, I don't hear a lot of this stuff that seems to go by the wayside or being heard by somebody else. It kind of strikes me as ironic that being the councilman there, I feel like everybody knows more about the south side than I do. It's kind of funny. Thank you.
Councilor Vigil.
I don't want to make this a huge discussion, but Mr. Grego, I hope you're not implying that I'm trying to divide the city or divide the council. I'm commenting.
Let's not have a discussion here. Councilor Grego, let him.
Go ahead.
He's got the floor.
I'm commenting on what was said on Monday night by people up here, and like I said that night, I agree with you. This is one city, but people keep bringing up what's being funded for them, for that place, and for this place, and for that place. So if what I'm trying to say is, if we're going to have a discussion about this, what's the vernacular we're going to use? Are we going to use south side, north side? Are we going to use Ward 3, Ward 2, Ward 1? What are we going to do?
And Councilor Vigil, I'm not saying that you're doing that, okay? All I'm asking is, in the future, use the area. If you have questions in Ward 4, well, why isn't money being spent in Ward 4 or Ward 3 or Ward 1 or 2? But to use every time you throw that word out, or whoever throws it out, it seems to me personally, I don't know, everybody else might feel differently. It seems to takes us back to the division, you know. And there's no way I was saying that you're trying to divide it, but I'm just saying I'm asking as a favor, I guess, that in the future we use the proper term, Ward 4, or Ward 3, or whatever, you know, where the money's used. And I think that'll help eventually get rid of that word, get rid of that if it causes division. So, no, I did not, if you don't misunderstand me, I'm sorry. I did not say that you were, you know.
Councilor Grego, I think that's an excellent idea. We have representatives from every ward in the city here at this table. Councilor Stefano.
You know, I'm one of the first ones to apologize, because Monday night I made a statement about the ghetto. What I meant was, it's a cliche throughout a lot of the states in the United States. Every south side is over the tracks and is always considered a slum. So I apologize for the words I said. I don't consider the south side a slum or a ghetto. It's another neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood, just like all the other wards in Alamosa.
Thank you. I've got 3 items, and unless anyone else has, I've got 3 items. Don't forget to pick up your mail in the mailboxes today, Council. Number 1. Number 2, I'd like to thank Mark Loy for sitting in for our regulars, and Sam for being in the back. Sam, thank you for being here. Appreciate your presence, means a lot. I did have comments specific to the tax on marijuana. There are a lot of advocates out in the community that are saying, vote no on marijuana. And that means if you vote no on the tax, if it passes, marijuana will not be taxed, correct?
So yes, sir, it's important for people to understand, I believe, what you're saying, that you can vote differently on the two items. And so if someone, for example, might be against wanting to legalize the sale of marijuana and wanted to vote no on that, they may still want to vote yes in the chance that it passes to where a tax is being collected and we would have the funds to be able to regulate it and administer that. Is that what you were?
Exactly, and I think there's a misconception out in the community that you're going to vote no on everything or yes on everything, and so just wanted to bring that up and make sure that that's clarified in the eyes of our voters. Yes, our ballots are out, and I hope everyone votes for the person of their choice, and that includes council as well as a lot of the initiatives and school board. And I guess we have two position on school board that nobody's even wanting to run. Interesting. Anyway, that's all I have.
I just have one more comment to add to what the mayor was saying, because that is important. I just encourage the people to go to our website and click on the tab at the very top of our website, and that information that's on the internet will help you when it comes time to trying to figure all of that ballot information out. So I encourage people to go to the website.
Thank you. If there are no further council comments, I'll adjourn this meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.